Hello and welcome to Lightfall's new e-learning course on spotting misinformation. Just quickly before we begin, I'll introduce myself. So my name is Roisin and I'm a digital fundraising coach here at Lightfall. I've worked in the non-profit sector for a few years now in different communication and fundraising roles, and I'm really passionate about using digital tools for social good and also using digital tools for awareness campaigns and getting positive and reliable messages out to the people who need to be hearing them. So today we're going to be talking about spotting misinformation, which is something that's really important at the moment during the COVID-19 pandemic. So as humans, we want to understand the world around us, what's going on, and especially now we want to understand the current situation with the pandemic. And one of the ways we do this is by seeking and sharing information. And I know that at the moment we're all being exposed to a huge amount of information about COVID-19, information about the vaccine, about what we should and shouldn't be doing. But not all of this information is reliable. And it's important to be able to tell the difference between information and misinformation. And hopefully this quick video will help you learn how to spot fake news and how to stop the spread of misinformation. So before we begin, we'll just set some definitions about what we mean by information and misinformation. I'm sure you already know these definitions, but it's always helpful to have a refresher, particularly now at a time when information is so fundamental to our well-being and to our general safety. So what is information? So this is what we call things that are accurate to the best of our knowledge. So for example, we know that COVID-19 stands for Coronavirus Disease 2019. That's something that we know is true and accurate. So what then is misinformation? So this is false information, or misinformation is incorrect content that is often shared by someone who's actually trying to help and do good. But depending on what is being shared, misinformation can turn out to be quite harmful. And then we also have disinformation. So this is false information created with the intention of causing harm or gaining profit. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, disinformation is being used to erode our trust in each other, in governments and in public institutions. So it's really important that we watch out for it both online and offline, and that we try and stop the spread of this sort of information. So why is it so important to spot misinformation now during the COVID-19 pandemic? Well, really it's because there is so much information available to us at the moment. So you've got all these different scientific studies. There's also official communications being released from governments and health agencies around the world. Then you've also got news articles, opinion pieces, messages from social media influencers, from celebrities, podcasters. I mean, the list goes on and on. And then you also have information that's shared by friends and family on their social media, or even in person and at community events and meetings. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, we're being completely overwhelmed by all this information, and there are so many options and opinions and conflicting statistics that we're reading. But at the same time, on a more positive note, there is also a global movement to promote access to health information. So health institutions across the world want to make sure that individuals and communities can access the health information and health education that they need to protect themselves and others. So in February 2020, the World Health Organization expressed concern about a global misinformation infodemic. So what does that actually mean? What is an infodemic? So this is defined as a flood of information, some accurate and some not, that spreads alongside an epidemic or pandemic. And this is what we're seeing during COVID-19. There is a huge amount of information online, but not all of it is accurate, and not all of it is published with good intentions. And infodemics can often undermine the trust that society has in science, interventions and public healthcare. So now more than ever, it's vital that we can differentiate fake news from reliable information, particularly if you're going to be talking to your community about COVID-19 and about the vaccine. It helps to think of misinformation and disinformation spreading in the same way as viruses. So one person might share some fake news with their friends and family, and then a handful of them share it with their friends and family, and before you know it, potentially harmful or dangerous information is taking over everyone's newsfeed. So that's why we need to keep our eye out for it. And just as we can protect ourselves against COVID-19 through hand washing, social distancing and wearing face masks, we can also protect ourselves and slow down the spread of misinformation by practicing some communication and information sharing best practices. So to help you, we have collated some top tips on how to recognise a trusted source of information and how to spot the difference between real and false information. So tip 1 is always assess the source. Who has shared the information with you? Where did they get it from? And think about what are their intentions. If information is from a social media account, it's always a good idea to check the account and how long it's been active, check the number of followers, and also have a look at their recent posts. And then again, if you're getting information from a website, check the About Us and the Contact Us page to make sure it's a legitimate and reliable site. And also when assessing any piece of information on whatever digital channel you're looking at, check for any typos, grammatical errors or unprofessional design, because reliable sources won't often have these. So tip number 2 is to identify the author. So think about who created the content, who is giving you this information, and what are their intentions. It's always a good idea to Google an author so find out who they are and learn a little bit more about them and their views and their beliefs, as this will shape the information that they're giving to you. Tip 3 is to check the date. So is this a recent piece of information that you're reading? Is it up to date with current events? Some news outlets republish old posts or promote old news as current information, so that's why it's really important to always check the publication date. And especially now with updates on COVID-19 and the vaccine changing every day and almost every few hours, it's really important that you're reading the most current and up-to-date information. On Google, you can actually filter your search results by time, which I always do to find the most recent information. And that's a really helpful trick when searching for info. So tip number 4 is to examine the supporting evidence. So supporting evidence, what we mean by that is, or are the quotes and statistics that an author is using to back up their point or their argument. And credible information is always backed up by facts. So check to see what facts, figures and statistics the author is using in their piece of information. What experts are they quoting, if any, and are there links to other credible sources and studies? Tip number 5 is to go beyond the headlines. So information in the press and social media is often sensational and provocative on purpose to grab people's attention and get the most readers and clicks. So always read more than just the headlines, find out the whole story. And also it's a good idea to not always rely solely on social media for important information. Although it is a great source of information, it's always good to additionally back up your findings by looking at newspapers, podcasts, news sites and other organisational websites as well. Global news outlets such as Reuters and also the Associated Press focus on distributing correct information, so they're always good ones to go to. Our last tip is a very important one, so check your own bias. We all have our own history, our own stories, our own opinions, all these different things that shape us to be who we are today. And these also impact how we view what is going on around us. So if you think about, I just skipped slides. If you think about a piece of information and think about how it makes you feel when you're reading it, and why do you feel that way? Do you agree or disagree with the information being portrayed to you, and why is that? Also, if a certain piece of information makes you feel angry or uncomfortable, think about why that is, because there might be a specific reason as to why. So those were our top tips for spotting misinformation. So I'll just recap some of those for you. So 1, assess the source, identify the author, check the date, examine the supporting evidence, go beyond the headlines, and lastly, remember to always check your own bias. So thank you for listening, and I hope you found this helpful. I know that it can be overwhelming when trying to sift through a lot of information, particularly when you're looking for reliable facts that you can then share with your community and with people that you care about. So if you need any additional support with communications or campaign planning around COVID-19 or building vaccine trust among your community, do feel free to get in touch with the Lightful team at support@lightful.com. Our team is experienced in using digital platforms and digital tools for storytelling to help raise awareness and deliver effective campaigns. And we're here to support you, so do get in touch, as we would love to hear from you. Thank you.